Ready for another week of, I'm glad we have a week, but ready for another week where it's a different type of ball game. You're playing a really tough, disciplined team in northern Iowa. I mean, I went back and looked, and they're always, 5 of the last 7 years, they've been top six in the country in rebounding. The other 2 years, they were 12th. So you're looking at a team that does a great job on the glass, does not give up assisted buckets, and is extremely disciplined. So it's a different way that the other two games present in how Northern Iowa plays, but excited about the opportunity on Thursday night.
So what have you heard from the Shocker faithful about how cool it is to bring this matchup back, a Valley rivalry, and these two programs went back and forth for quite some time?
Yeah, I asked Ryan Hillard, who's kind of seen them both and has been here. He mentioned that I said rebounding the ball has kind of been a staple of Missouri Valley basketball, and you saw it obviously with Shocker teams here. We're always among the top five teams in the country, and then you see it with Northern Iowa. So I'm aware of some of the history that's involved. I had a lot of people coming up to me after the game telling me how Ben Jacobson approaches games here in the Roundhouse and what I need to be prepared for. But digging into the film, they have wonderful complement of players and guys who've been there a while. This will be different because they have a guy in Jacob Hudson who at 6'11" can step out and shoot threes. He made three of them the other day. So to be in that position to where different type of player than what we faced before and understand the challenges that'll present, it'll be a really good game on Thursday night.
What did you hear about how they approach games here in Wichita?
Uh, Everybody's got different opinions. I heard some tell me that they're going to play extremely slow because they don't want the crowd into it, and Ben's kind of notorious for that when he comes here. And then be ready for a fast-paced game. So I've kind of heard all over the map. So my guess is it'll be somewhere in the middle.
And what are the challenges of playing a 3-point shooting big when you have such a good rim protector in Quincy? What's kind of the challenges there for him?
For him, he needs to stay down. We've told Quincy, we went through this a year ago when we played Temple, is we're in overtime. We have to kind of remove him from the game because he's such a shot blocker. I mean, it's what he's gifted at. But we told him we don't expect you to block shots on the perimeter. This is more on the interior. We have to stay down on the perimeter. The thing we talk a lot about is being the second jump. You're never the first jump. You're always a second jump. And we got to get Quincy to maintain second jump discipline. We can't have him out of the game because of shot fakes and guys' ability to drive by. The other night, in a late shot clock situation off of a switch, he blocked a jump shot and then he holds up the X as if he's got clamps. And so I'm like, do not get carried away with this. Like, your ability to block shots is within 6 feet of the rim. Let's not get extended to 23. And so we do not need to play backside 5 versus 4 because Quincy eliminates himself trying to block shots on the perimeter. Just use your length. If they shoot over you, they shoot over you. But we need to be up physically, but we need to be back mentally, anticipating the drive. If he shoots it, as long as you get a hand up, if you're the second jump, we're okay with that. Nobody's asking people to block shots on the perimeter. You're asked to challenge them, and that's just simply by sticking a hand up.
And last year, I think the Southern Illinois game was probably the most well-attended game of the non-con. I think I heard you last time on the show, and you kind of could just sense in the crowd that it meant a little bit more. I was curious, if you could expand on that and, bringing back these Valley rivalries. Obviously, you weren't here those times, but you get the sense that these games kind of mean a little bit more to WSU fans.
Well, I will tell you, people recognize familiar names, and so when you bring somebody in and they're familiar with them, especially over the years, and I mean, if you go back and look at some of the Missouri Valley contests, I'm no historian, but I know from the game day crew came for a UNI game versus the Shockers. So I do know that people are familiar with it. You know, I know that people are familiar with Creighton, and you and I were kind of the two that stick out in the Missouri Valley that were constant nemesis around here. And so I think people will be familiar with that, and it's good when you have an opponent who fans are familiar with.
How are Zane and TJ doing in their recoveries right now?
TJ's making great progress. He's out there. He's working out with us, doing a good job. You know, meniscus tear is probably a easier thing to come back from rather than getting your knee scoped. Zane told me last week, he said, I'll be back, and he gave me a timetable. And so he's optimistic. I don't know that it's reality. I think a lot of people think that they're going to get back sooner than they are. And I said, well, let's just trust the doctors and trainers. But both of them are trying to get back. Both of them are making progress towards get back. But TJ's actually working out with us and able to do some things on the court.
How do you go about balancing that of trying to get them back out on the floor, but also knowing that you got like 4 more months of basketball that you're trying to make sure that they're healthy for?
Yeah, I don't think that far ahead. I kind of think about today and get locked in on that. And it's one of those things where, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But right now, you're just, man, how do we get better today? But, I mean, there's a bigger picture in how this all fits, but not just with TJ and Zane, with a number of other players. And keeping everybody engaged in this process, even though it's hard to hear sometimes as a player. It's hard to take as a competitor that this game you may not be needed. It may be somebody else is a better matchup, or 2 people or 3 people. They work better together given the circumstances. And so you try to think game to game, and I think that we're pretty upfront. We kind of tell players ahead of time, this is what we think we see, but stay ready. And so we try to, I use a phrase around here, communication prevents disaster. And we try to over communicate and let guys know game to game what we see, the way we think it's going to play out. We're not always right, but I do think it's comforting if I was in those players' shoes to know ahead of time, while having the mentality that if I get called on, I need to be able to produce.
Having a week of tape and being able to get back on the practice court is what's been your takeaway from how the guys have responded and how work's improved?
Yeah, Sunday we were off, so I thought yesterday was good. We have a long ways to go, you know. Disappointed in things, encouraged about things. You probably there's things that we have to be good at. Rebounding the ball is one of them. Taking care of the ball is another. So there's been progress, but we haven't rebounded the ball at a level that we need to, and so we have to get a lot better there. And from film to drills, there's not anything that we don't drill on the court that they're not going to see in the game. We just need a lot more carryover from what's happening over there on the practice court to what's actually happening in games.
Coach, quite a bit of production from Justin Hill through these first 2 games. Hasn't had much trouble finding the rim. What's been your impression for his first 2 shot?
Yeah, his conversion at the free throw line, you know, the ability just to step up there and be able to make foul shots. I think that if you have a player who has the ability to play downhill like that they need to be able to not only think score, because if you think score, you're going to attract attention. That now you need to recognize that 2 are on me and get rid of it. And I think he's done a great job of doing that. And then playing in space when he knows matchups are favorable. Our players hear me say this a lot, but all good players want the same thing, and that's space. They need to be able to play in that room. I think Justin's been able to do that. And I think he's made the right decisions. And because he can play downhill, because he can make perimeter shots, he has the ability to attract attention. And he's doing a great job of getting rid of it too. So, I mean, go back to that first game last Monday. I mean, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Like there's a number of things that he's doing well besides just scoring the basketball.
You mentioned Matei was, your words were he held his own after the season opener against Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
Now Montana State under his belt. You know, have you noticed kind of a rise in confidence? You know,
Well, No, I think Mate's been pretty disappointed in his play, and that happens, right? Every game isn't going to be great. Every game isn't going to be a career high. There's only one career high that you're going to experience during the course of your lifetime. So I think for him, he has to recognize that, man, if I play 20 minutes, I'm probably touching the ball maybe 40 seconds. Like that other 19 minutes and 20 seconds, I need to have an impact on a game. And you try to educate a lot of young players like that. And he's not young, but you try to educate, especially your younger guys, that there's so much more to do in the game. He's doing a really good job of passing the ball. And I find that he's becoming more assertive. I think, and I'm confident his conversion rate will get a little bit higher, but he's a perfectionist. He expects higher than what he's currently given, and he'll play well. He just needs some games under his belt.
How much does it help having a guy like Xavier Bell in that second unit, a returning guy from last year that got a lot of minutes, to be able to kind of help out some of the new guys in the second unit, do a little bit of everything for you guys in the guard position?
Yeah, it's a great question just because I feel like in order to be a good team, you need 8 starters. And if you only have 5, and then you have to look and you realize that those other guys are not up to par as the other, I don't feel that at all. And so, I don't think any of our players would take offense to second unit, but I think that we actually get better when we go to our bench. I think, and I think because Quincy Ballard can kind of be on an island defensively and handle his own. And then we needed to pair Mate and Ronnie together in order to provide more of a service defensively in order to maintain a standard. And we needed to throw X in there in the backcourt, not only for his scoring when we bring Justin out, but I also think he brings a tremendous defensive component. So I would tell you that I think you have 3 guys in Mate, Ronnie, and X who we can bring in off the bench, and you feel really, really good about where you're going as a basketball team. That kind of depth lends itself to making strides when you go that route. So you don't have to play anybody extended minutes, and they can kind of give their all. One of the areas that been disappointed is we'll have some lulls. We'll have a 3-minute, 5-minute stretch where we're just not humming at a level maybe that we were previously. But I don't think that has anything to do with our bench. And Xavier, Ronnie, Mate, to be able to bring those guys in. Xavier's the one who comes in the backcourt, and there is 0 drop off.
It seems with Ronnie, he does a lot of little things. Some of them have been appearing on the box score. He's been putting up good box score stats, but is he a guy that the value kind of extends beyond like the counting stats?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there was a publication earlier this year that labeled him as the Defensive Player of the Year. I think it was Athlon Sports, and he'll be in that discussion. He can guard 1 through 5. He can stay in front of anybody. The ability, and he's physical enough to cause a problem with the interior guys. But his ability to fly around, given his size, is pretty impressive. We saw this versus Montana State. There were 2 situations, offensive rebounds off of corner crashes, where he just takes the ball from the opposition and grabs it and puts it in. And then he has 2 jump balls defensively where he's able to go and get his hands on ball. His value won't ever show up in a stat sheet. It'll show up in a win column. We had 29 deflections the other night. The majority of them were by Quincy Ballard on account of the 4 block shots. But Ronnie's disruptiveness and his ability to cover up for other people's mistakes cannot be underestimated. And our team realizes that when we go and show them the film and we show them Ronnie making up for somebody else's mistake, it's pretty impressive, and it's appreciated.
How has he improved maybe shooting 3-pointers offensively?
He has, and I would just tell you that it's a confidence issue. We had a paint touch 3. Justin drove the right seam, kicked it out to him there, and Ronnie was on the right seam and shot it. But he missed it, but there was no hesitation. And I think sometimes a year ago, he would, and a lot of players did this, especially with me just being new, is like, is this the right shot to take? And the corner three that he makes from the right corner, he has zero hesitation. We kind of encourage him to not overthink it. That there are opportunities there. I was glad, he's going to approach this the right way, and so if he misses a few shots, that's not really going to mess with him. But he's consistent, and I think that's what you want is guys who are going to be consistent. So 6 for 12 the other night from the free throw line against Western Kentucky. He came in the next day, did the same routine that he always does, and then he goes 4 for 4 on Saturday. So I know whether the ball's going in or whether it's not, it consistently he's going to show up to work, but you want him to not have to think through, is this a good shot or is it not? And I think being a year with us, he understands what is and what isn't.
You mentioned there being disappointing and encouraging things from the first week. What have been some of the most encouraging things you've seen from the first 3 games and how the players have responded in practice?
I think they ask questions. The first thing that all players have to do is they have to learn the rules. And when I say that, I don't mean you get 1 point for a free throw, or you have to be what is being asked of you. Everybody is asked to produce. So they hear me say this a lot. The first 3 letters of produce spell pro. And if that's what you aspire to, production has to be a part of this. First, you have to learn the rules, then you need to be consistent in those rules. Whatever it is you're asked to do, you need to do it. Once you learn the rules and can be consistent, then you can really, really compete. We've got a group who has really, what do you need me to do? What are the things I need to do? Who've been extremely bought in. And they've been that way since June. And it was evident that they wanted to make an impact. And they were trying to, what is it that I'm being asked to do? And then how quickly do you need me to do this? And at what speed? And so that's probably what I'm most encouraged about is we have a group of guys whose buy-in is really high. We have talented players coming off the bench. Xavier Bell being one of those guys, Ronnie DeGray being one of those guys. And I'm telling you, there are 0 issues. And we told them ahead of time why this was going to be the situation. But we have a group who has bought in. They have, what are the rules? I'm going to stay consistent in those. And they've been competitive about following through on what they've been asked to do.
Does it help having so many guys like Xavier, Ronnie, who are seniors in the final year of eligibility? Does that help with the players kind of being really bought in?
No doubt. You win with men. You don't win with young kids. You don't win with children. You win with men. And the way that you win with men is men understand responsibilities and they follow through on them. You don't have to remind men that we're starting at 2:30 and then check on them at 2:32 to see if they remembered their job. Men show up. Men are responsible. And you win with men. Those guys are men.
On that zone alley-oop play that you guys run to Harlan, I was looking back and it looked like you were running it at Oral Roberts, and I went back and saw you guys running at Baylor. Is that where kind of the origin came from? Like, is that from the Scott Drew days?
Scott Drew has a lot of plays. Like when you go into his office, he has binders of plays. He would draw them up. He's pretty old school. And he'd get a Sharpie pen out, and he would pass them to the players. I'd ask Quincy Acey, and there would be usually 2 new baseline OBs on a player's chair when they came in at pregame. And I was like, did you ever have any idea what any of that stuff meant? And he's like, no. But Scott Drew has binders of plays for zones, and there's no way that I could ever catch up. But I have an idea, guys who can catch alley-oops, simple plays. The alley-oop may be one thing, but like I've shown us running some plays at Baylor, but you'll tell them Royce O'Neal plays right now for the Phoenix Suns. Like, you see this screen by this guy, look how good of a screener he is. But I mean, there's so many things that have to take place in order for the execution of something that looks so simple. Like, that pass has to be on target. It has to be able to be caught. The screening angles have to be right. The timing has to be right. And all of those things play a part. But Scott Drew, has more plays than Broadway, and I've stole a few of them. I'll write a book one day called "Plays I've Stolen from Other Thieves," but he's got a lot of them.
I was curious. I was going to ask you, like, that's pretty common practice, right? You know, I'm sure he got that play from somebody. And
Probably
that
his
play.
dad. Yeah. Very, very common. I heard a pastor one time tell me he was going to write a book called "Sermons I Stole from Other Thieves," and I said, "That's basketball." I was up till about 1 a.m. Watching a lot of Olympiacos last night, and what could we bring in here via Olympiacos, because the European rules are very similar to college. So, well, we all steal.
Anything else?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.